Um, we also conduct a study, and we managed to see best practices in several areas of social forestry. We see that community-based forest management as an alternative paradigm to the centralistic state-based and timber-based forest management has been around for maybe 4 decades in Indonesia. But however, until now, communities control more than 1/9 of forest area controlled by large corporations. So this shows we did several studies in social forestry units, or KPH, including village forests, customary forests, and community forests, to learn about how communities implemented forest and land management, institutional management, and business management, and their contribution to addressing climate change. So we do the study in Padang Tikar landscape in West Kalimantan, Bujang Ramba landscape in Jambi, Jorong Simancuang in West Sumatra, and then customary forest in Muarena, South Sulawesi, community forest under study in Kalibiru, and Tani Manunggal Bleweran, Yogyakarta. We see that in those areas, like for instance here, you can see in Kalibiru here, you see that in 2002, it's like that. And then now in 2019, you can see the difference right now. It's only 29, maybe 29 hectares. And then in Bleberan, there's 40 hectares. But it managed also to reserve the forest there, replant the forest, and it stays there. And you can see that like in Bujang Raba, the village forest of Bujang Raba, the halting forest cover has declined significantly. If you see that is the green line is the history, and then the baseline is red, they managed the targets, the yellow one, and the achievement, capaian, is actually above the target. So it managed to really improve how the villagers has been involved and to manage the forest. So the study shows that social forestry role in reducing emission from deforestation, forest degradation, conserving forests, and enhancing carbon stock relates to whether communities are enabled to reap benefits from the forest in at least 3 ways. Provision of direct income and substitute previously forest harming income, like for instance from illegal logging, and then reliable ecosystem service to support their main livelihood, mostly from agriculture, and prevention of natural disasters that disrupt the livelihoods of the people. So therefore, the agroforestry, non-timber forest products, and ecotourism become relied upon as alternative sources of income for the people. The biggest challenge, however, is off-taker and market in the case of agroforestry and non-timber forest products, and large competitor for ecotourism. So from these studies, we see that how social forestry managed to prove that they can preserve and even improve forests and land cover, managed by peatland sustainability, and prevent forest fires as well. This part will maybe by Ibu Laksmi in her presentations, because what is needed right now is how community can access also and get support from the current financing scheme in, to improve and strengthen communities' contribution to NDC. So it can help to community to reach consensus, to plan, implement sustainable land and forest management. It can also help to build their market product service, including agroforestry, non-timber forest products, and also ecotourism, and also to assess climate risk and hazards, and build climate change adaptation plan. So if we can synergize the current program of the Ministry of Environment and Forestry, of PROCLIM, and also the Climate Village program, which we are also now conducting, and we are in Madani. We have tried. We are now on we have two pilot programs, one in Central Sulawesi, and also in West Sumatra, one village there and one village in Sumatra, to merge the two programs from PROCLIM and Climate Village program. So how we want to see whether if those two programs can be merged, then how it can maximize the contribution for NDC in Indonesia. So this is maybe just an overview and how we want people to see, and also the government hopefully can recognize the contribution from the social forestry, that it can play a big role and play a significant role to help reduce emissions in Indonesia. Thank you.
Thank you, Nadia. I think the point that Nadia is also trying to convene on this is what important is that there is no small actions. Any actions will be significant, especially if you look at what 6% is only for 3 units of the social forestry. But then if you continuously empowering this community, it will be key it will be key to realizing social forestry positive contribution to NDCs. So you don't have to have a new actions, but already an ongoing program anyway. From Bukit Barisan, I would like to go to the other part of the world, which is Amazon, because in Amazon, in Brazilians, we know that you already start earlier than Indonesia. Then maybe there's some stories that you can share, also lesson learned that will be a good input. So Annie, you have the time.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. For me, it's an honor actually to be here in the Indonesia Pavilion. I always want to go to Indonesia. Maybe one day I'll go. My dream is to meet a peat forest. So what Dewi asked me to share with you is some lessons learned from the Amazon Fund. And before I do that, I will present a little bit on the fund, just for us to have the same ground. And I'm here as an representative of an NGO that access one of the big projects of the fund. So I also be talking about that. So my talk, we have like 3 parts. The first part, I will present present a little bit about the fund. The second part, just very quickly on what was our project. And third part, just highlight the discussions on lesson learned and things that actually could be improved and for your fund. So the Amazon Fund, is a RED mechanism. It was created in 2008 to actually be able to raise donation and in a non-reimbursable way, investments to prevent deforestation. And so basically, Brazil was very successful in the last decade in reducing deforestation. We reduced our rates by 80%, more or less, from after 2005. And that allowed us to actually pledge some funds in Norway and Germany, came for that. So that was the amount of reduction that we had, and this was that allowed us to actually access funds for avoided deforestation. So the general objective of the fund is actually reduce deforestation, but with sustainable development practices. So there are 4 major, axes of the fund of objectives. One is to promote sustainable production. The other one is a monitoring and control component. The third one, which is basically land use planning. And the fourth one, which is science, innovation, and economic instruments component. So as you see, we have to tackle like illegal deforestation by doing like very well good monitoring. But also we believe that people still need to keep producing. So let's invest. The fun thought. Let's invest in sustainable production activities. We also believe that we need science to, promote improvements on this production, on this monitoring and things like that. And we also need, and it's a major issue in Brazil, is the land tenure issue. So we also need to accommodate this as a major aspect of and actually to promote governance, because you cannot govern a territory that you don't know what it is and to whom it belongs. So the main governance structure of the Amazon Fund, and this is very important, and then later on you know, because now this governance structure has been contested with this new government. So basically what we have deforestation rates, which are like a monitoring measurements, and it's done by a national space agency in Brazil. And these numbers are taken to the Ministry of Environment that actually is responsible officially to calculate emissions and to give the certificates of avoided emissions. So from one side, we have all the funders, the multilateral agencies, NGOs, government, private, institutions, individuals, everyone can donate to the Amazon Fund. And so the funds are raised and taken care by BNDES, which is a major bank in Brazil. It's a state bank, it's a government bank. And there is a process on approval and selecting the projects, and all in the process of monitoring. This is done with support of COFA, which is a committee. It was until actually yesterday or 2 days ago, major, formed by civil society and other groups, but a lot of seats from civil society. And they are responsible for approval and to give guidances to indications which projects would be good to go to. And then there is a project implementation, which is done by the BNDES, which is the bank group of people, and there are independent auditing. So this is in a very simple way, the structure of the Amazon Fund governance. So some results of 10 years of the bank activity. So about 103 supported projects, about 720 million was already given. And I mean, given to is in our cash. I mean, in the government bank, but only 458 million was actually disbursed. So not a lot. I mean, a little bit of half, it was disbursed, and this was a problem, big problem in the beginning. Okay, the disbursement process. So it's very important to realize that the third sector, which are the NGOs, they received about 38% of the funds until now. But when we put together federal government and state governments, they are actually the ones that received more the donations. I mean, municipalities as well. So the project actually went over the Amazon, not only in the Amazon, so all these dots are actually projects supported by Amazon funds at some point. And as you can see in the graphs on the right, actually left, you can see that the disbursement in the beginning of the fund was very low. And it was gaining, like after 2013, actually we had an increase, and it was increasing over time. And since 2018, we had a new call, and this call was stopped. So right now we are under construction or reconstruction. It's very important to say that the fund went through major changes over time. So in the beginning, the group that coordinated the fund actually wanted to go only for big projects. So only the NGOs that were very well established, had good administration skills, or could actually go and pledge for the fund and go for all the bureaucracy that the bank needed. So it made that all communities and NGOs, small NGOs, actually had a major difficulty in accessing the funds. So these, there were some ways that people actually overcame that. So there were small funds that were created. So maybe IPAM, as a large NGO, would get a fund and then created another fund that would give to other smaller NGOs with less bureaucracy or things like that. So now I'm going to talk about the Sustainable Cerumen project, which was a project that IPAM got from the Amazon Fund from 2012 to 2017. It was a 5-year project, about $6 million total. We reached about 2,000 smallholder families in 3 settlements in the Amazon. Basically, what we wanted with the project is to respond to this question: what happened with the smallholders in the Amazon if they had all the access to public policy? Just about that. So if they had like technical assistance, if they had credit, would they reduce deforestation? Would they increase their income? So basically it was that the question of our project. In general terms, we actually had these project lines. So we worked with co-management initiatives, sustainable production. We also deal with transformation and commercialization of the products. We did a small group of these 2,000 families. We actually did a payment for environmental services to see if that would add to the process. We created an indicator monitoring and evaluation initiative, and a lot of information capacity building and information dissemination. And we had to deal a lot with environmental law adequation. I mean, it's called environmental registry in Brazil. I don't know if you have something like that in Indonesia. But that was like the first thing that people have to do. So just as a result, deforestation did reduce by 79% in general, but in the group that received payment for environmental services, that reduction was higher. And the group in general got an income from 121% more with their activities. So my last slide, just talking about the challenges of the Amazon Fund as a lesson learned that I brought to you. Yeah, we need to figure out a way to support small NGOs. They are important. The communities are important. These need to be accounted. It was nice to have the Amazon Fund in the bank, in the Brazilian bank, but it was very bureaucratic, and one thing has to deal with the other. It was not very flexible, so and when you are thinking in one project of 5 years, you need to be able to be a little bit flexible because things change, like contests change, so you need to think about that and how you can accommodate change and actually do some adaptive management over time. Some projects are very difficult to link with results, with like really reduction emissions. Because, I mean, if you are engaged in the communities in a process of like managing their territories, it's not right away that you have the results that they will reduce emissions. Our project, we could be able to do that because we're doing that. We are measuring like parcels. But when you are dealing with a territory that is, I mean, it's not so physically well defined, it's difficult. And also like take care with only large projects. And now, and the weak governance is just for the current situation. Our current government, unfortunately, is changing the entire structure of the fund, weakening the governance of the fund, suspended all the projects that were actually went through an editorial, and we don't know what is going to happen. So, but one last thing, the Amazon Fund is important for NGOs, is important for communities, but it's important for the state governments. The state governments in Brazil, they are responsible for environmental management. They are responsible for enforcement. And there is a lack of resources for that, for these governments in Brazil. And the Amazon Fund had filled this gap for a while. So with this, I thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Eddie. It's amazing how we are live on, on the different part of the words, but the problems, the issues is actually the same. So talking about the land tenures, we are talking about how small NGOs can also come as beneficiaries for this kind of fund. But I'll take your notes for that this kind of fund is actually important because it gives not only for communities, but we're also talking about the state governments, which is, Indonesia also has that kind of problem as well. We have a lot of state governments also trying to empowering their capacity as well. So I think I would like to go to Mbak Ami, Mbak Laksmi as our last but not least. She's probably the most important actually. I mean, you hear the stories, Mbak Ami, from Brazilian, and then you hear the stories from the Indonesians and the communities, how to empower communities. And I believe, I understand that BPDLH is also always considering communities, local governments, and all the NSA as the most important, one of the most important stakeholders. So if you kindly can share with us what's happening, what is the progress with BPDLH, and how you see this discussions that are already going can be in the input. I'll give you the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mbak Eka. Thank you for having me. Do I have 30 minutes? Okay, only 5 minutes, right? Okay, 10, great. So, thank you for the previous speakers, and 2 out of 3 speakers said that I will be given the answer. Well, I'm not so sure, but let's see. I'm trying my best. Okay. Can I have my, go to the slide number 4, please? Okay. Oh, I have this one. Okay, thank you. Because we all agree how important the climate change and we need to action now. But for Indonesia, the climate actions need a strategic policy and, of course, the financing collaborating among the stakeholders, the locals, globals, regional levels. And when it comes to finance, well, I don't know, it's always a challenging, and most of the colleagues share a painful experiences in getting the access to the finance. Hope it will be no longer the story in the future, because when we say that it's time for action, indeed, it has to be a time to mobilize the resources. It's time to unlock the financial access to all stakeholders. For Indonesia, for sure, because Indonesia will need about 81 billion US dollar to finance its mitigation and adaptation actions, according to our third national communication report. And the government budget alone will not be able to meet the financing needs for the climate change action, especially when we would like to have all the stakeholders and the locals, the smallholders especially, to engage with the climate change mitigation and adaptation actions. So the government have 2 strategies. The first strategy is to greening the fiscal policy. We need to have the fiscal policy that friendly to the climate change mitigation and adaptation action. And the second, we are developing quite numbers of innovating financing instruments. I will touch this a bit later. And we need to improve access to the global finance, because we know that there are access there, here and there at the global and the regional. And we need to make more attractive atmosphere for the private sector to engage with the investment. Okay, I will not talk about the fiscal policy, because yesterday here in this pavilion, I already explained the framework of the fiscal policy of Indonesia. So should you would like to know, you can get the file from the pavilion website. But I would like to emphasize the improving access to the global finance, because of course I will tell you the BPDLH, the famous BPDLH, because the moderator mentioned BPDLH quite a number of times, but should not forget that there are also a portion or allocations given by the global climate finance for the smallholders. I'm talking about the Green Climate Fund and global environmental facilities. In Indonesia, we try our best to get the access to those, the 2 mechanism, UNFCCC financial mechanism, to get money for our colleagues at the local levels. For the green environment, for the global environmental facilities, for example, the government, maybe I have to go. There is a small grant program under the global environmental facilities, and through this SGP program, the government of Indonesia has allocated as amount as 8 million US dollar from the JEF Indonesian Star allocation from 2010 to 2018. And up to now, this small grant has been benefiting 338 local groups, which constitute at least 6,760 households as a direct beneficiaries, and another 23,600 households as an indirect beneficiaries. So meaning that we need to also improve the access to the Green Environmental Climate Fund as we access to the global environmental facilities. Because Indonesia is only one of the number of countries who access to those global climate financing mechanism. So I think the challenge that has just shared by colleagues from the Brazil, it's indeed a challenge that we are having in front of us that we need to address. So now I come to the famous BPDLH. Well, Indonesia has been trying to develop quite numbers of innovative financing instruments. BPDLH is only one of them. We already launched, we call it Green Islamic Sukuk, and we already have the SDG Indonesia One platform, quite numbers of innovative. And this Public Service Agency for Environment is just another one. So mandated by the government regulations number 46 of 2017 and the presidential decree number 77 of last year, 2018, government of Indonesia has just launched last October. We call it BPDLH, or in a short, Environmental Fund, or LH Fund in Indonesian language. And this agency is to provide financing instruments such as grants, loan, equity, as well as the carbon trade, and any other possible facilities for the programs related to environment, especially for the climate change mitigation and adaptations. And BPDLH is prepared to perform a sound governance and effective and efficient management and its operational. I should mention in the beginning that non-state actor, it's a very crucially important actors in our NDC in Indonesia. If you have able to access to our NDC of Indonesia, it's clearly mentioned that the non-state actor, it's important actors. Meaning that without the non-state actor, Indonesia will not able to fulfill or to achieve its target. Because we have quite a higher number of target, 29% in 2030 with our own resources, and it will be increased to 41% with international support. So that means that this newly established fund will also give plenty of opportunity for the non-state actor to be part of the important players in our NDC implementation. And maybe you are now having a question. It's just new. Why you talk so much and promising too much? Well, although this is a newly launched, but this fund actually received a mandate to carry out the existing forest development fund. We do have a forest development fund that received the money from we call it forest reclamation fund, paid by the forest concession. And up till now, the forest development fund has disbursed up to 2.2 trillion IDR, or equivalent to 1.6 billion US dollar, to almost 24,000 beneficiaries. And all the beneficiaries are smallholders, medium and smallholders. And we still have another money that will be disbursed soon, hopefully in another 2 or 3 years, up to 2.1 trillion rupiah IDR, or equal to 1.5 billion US dollar. Sorry, I'm not master in numbers actually. So meaning that we already have money to be disbursed, and we already have the pipeline, and the 24,000 beneficiaries that I mentioned, it will be doubled in the next 2 or 3 years. This is the structure. But I just would like to mention that the fund do have a mandate to collect fund from multi sources, and it has a mandate to invest it in various ways, and it has a mandate to disburse to various and multiple purposes. So it's a multi kind of financial institution, multi-sources to multi-purposes. This is my last, no, my second last. I will not, well, due to the time constraint, I should not go into detail of this chart. But I just would like to emphasize that here at the beneficiaries, we put the local government, local people, and NGO as the most beneficiaries to this fund. Of course, the fund will also, is also facing challenges that has been shared by the colleague from Brazil. We should not too bureaucratic. I think we should learn from many previous existing funds that not too bureaucratic, but in the same time, we need also to ensure that the fiduciary standard it's well implemented. Otherwise, the fund will not have a good recognition, because we would like to have the BPDLH to be accredited by the Green Climate Fund, just to improve the direct access to the global climate finance regime. Okay, my last, as I mentioned, it's time for action. We always, in environment, say that think globally, action locally, meaning that if the money there in the global, make sure that they will disperse to the local. Thank you.
Thank you, Mbak Ami. That's a really something. I mean, the money can come from anywhere. I mean, the multi-sources, but with the multi-beneficiaries as well. But then they have to be able to drive the actions locally. I mean, with that, I would like to invite some questions. If there is a questions from the floor. Yes, one. Probably, is there anyone else? I will take 3. Not yet. Okay, sirs. We can start with you. The names and the organizations, countries. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Romney. I'm from the University of Miami in the United States. So I'm a student. I apologize for coming a little late. I was at another meeting related to my research. But so in case this was addressed, how are both Brazil and Indonesia dealing with the balance between economic interests and the interests of the environment? So for example, the palm oil industry in Indonesia is seen as having a lot of the impact on the environment, and there's debate about farmers having the right to go for a cash crop that will help their livelihoods and their families. And similarly in the Amazon, of course, we see a similar situation with ranchers as well. So I just wanted to know what debates and what countries are taking to. Thank you.
Thank you. Sure. Okay, we can start with Annie. Yeah.
This is always the question, how to reconcile environmental with. I think it's important to mention that when the fund was established was when Brazil had the lowest, the highest emission reduction from deforestation. And it was at that time that we created more protected areas, but we also had a huge increase in exports. We also had a huge increase in area planted of soybean, and also increase in cattle ranching and heads of cattle production. So we proved, Brazil proved that it's possible, and we still have open, space to do that, to improve that. So I don't think it's a matter of it's impossible to do that, because we proved that it is possible. It's a matter of political will. It's a matter of being, how can I say that? It's a matter of actually don't look to the future. So if a government that has a resource such as the Amazon forest doesn't look to that as an asset, looks that as something that, has to be the forest, I mean, I'm so sorry for that. I mean, we are losing the future, you know. So I think I'm a believer. So I still believe that it's very important to have this international pressure over the importance of the Amazon, I mean, to the world, over the importance of being very careful with the consumption and with traceability of the products. So this can help a lot Brazil, because there is a part of the industry, the food industry in Brazil, that is really, I mean, is sensitive to risks, to reputational risks. And for that is really important that the other people that are not the Brazilians as well, we need to do that as well. We need to ask, I mean, each piece of meat that we're eating, from where is coming from. I mean, so, and the world needs to do that. So I do believe it's possible to reconcile both things. We proved that it's possible. We just need political will.
Yeah, Bami.
Yeah, can I just add? I absolutely agree with the previous speaker. Maybe my answer is just more in a technical. Political will is indeed certainly important, but we also need to have the indicators. And you know, nowadays, globally, every country will rate by the GDP only and by the economic indicators only. I think it's time to put another indicators. As we move toward the sustainable development, at least we need to have 3 indicators: for the economic, for the social, and for the environment. So I think in Indonesia, we are trying to do so. So of course, we have the economic growth index, and for the social, we have the human development index, and for the environment, we are now developing so-called environmental quality index. So we need to have those index in our dashboard. So if you are in the driving seat, then you can see, I mean, to what extent your engine will move forward. So I think we need to create and to develop that kind of indicators. And we need to have a same perception and same commitment at the global as well. How to see the sustainable. It's not only talking about the increasing the number of economic growth, but it's also need to look at the loss of biodiversity, for example, the greenhouse gas emission reduction, that kind of things. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Mbak Dewi, do you have something?
Thank you, Kak. I would like to answer that this is about the a balance that we're talking about, yeah. As I mentioned in my previous presentation, that Indonesia is actually seeing at the economic development, social, and then also the environmental, as Ibu Ami just mentioned. And then for palm oil plantation, there is what we call as a sustainable plantation that should actually consider those aspects. And then we all hope that we could actually deal with that evenly, and then also could actually implement in the ground how every stakeholders, related stakeholders, with a goodwill in solving the problem. It's not only Indonesia and Brazil, but everywhere. And then we are all facing this. And then, as Iwami said as well, that the politics is another things, but we know that smallholders in the palm oil sector also need to be considered carefully, and then also how the alternative solution could actually take this more further. Thank you.
Thank you. I only have like 2 minutes. Yes, sir, please. So I'll just get one more question, or there is other people that would like to have a question as well? No? Okay.
I want to congratulate the last lady who
Can you raise your voice, sir? Sorry.
I don't want to hurt your ears, but I want to congratulate the last lady who presented the last communication, and just to ask a little question because she tell us about the no state actors. I want to have more more information about the role of those actors, especially the social. Alors, comment on dit en français? Alors, civil society, the contribution of the civil society to the the elaboration of the NDC, please. Thank you so much.
Okay, Bami?
Yeah, when I mentioned about the non-state actor, I'm simply referred to the non-state actors mentioning in the context of the Paris Agreement.
Yeah.
Meaning that an individual or organizations that has significant political influence in implementing the Paris Agreement. So beside the local government as a state, central government, we have local government, we have NGOs, the civil society organizations, we have academicians, we have farmers, those are the non-state actors. And these non-state actors are equally important to the to the state or to the central government in dealing with the NDC implementation. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else wants to respond on that? No? Okay. Okay, yeah. I mean, and then the session's title is actually the role of non-state actors, including communities, but some of the presentations is really on the communities, but we are not only talking about communities here. I think I should wrap up the sessions because that's the only time that I have from the committee. What we learned from this is that no matter where you stay, no matter where the countries you are coming from, I mean, it's very important to realize the role of the non-state actors and how to empowering them to really contribute to the country's targets and the country's strategic development. So with that, I would like us to join to applause for our presenter. Thank you so much, and thank you for coming. Thank you.
Thank you very much for all speakers and moderator. That was a very fruitful session. We have a token of appreciation from the Minister of Environment Forestry. Therefore, I would like to request Ibu Laksmi Dewanti on behalf of the Ministry of Environment and Forestry to give the token of appreciation. And there will be a photo session as well. Shortly after this session, we still have another last session. And the title will be Partnership in Sustainable Landscape Management in South Sumatra as a Model for Climate Action. Therefore, I would like to request you to stay on your place and we'll begin shortly. Before we begin, I would like to inform you there's a phone found in front of our pavilion, but we think it belongs to someone Indonesian because the phone is in Bahasa, so anyone who think that his phone or her phone is missing, please contact in the information desk. Ladies and gentlemen, all guests, please enter our Indonesia pavilion and please have a seat because we will begin the last session shortly after this. And the title will be Partnership in Sustainable Landscape Management.